Welcome. Today's recording is from my 2017 Going Beyond Revenue Summit, and it is with Jennifer Dawn. Now, I'm excited to share Jennifer Dawn because she is the person that helped me learn how to use a planner. Beforehand, I think I'd love to blame public accounting for this. Calendars were used just to track how you spent your time, by the 15 minutes, not how you were going to use your time. And so with Jennifer's planner, the best planner ever, which I highly recommend, she helped me learn how to plan ahead, how to plan for my time to be better used, which is still an ongoing process. And I still give her full credit for that. She's also a brilliant profit first coach. And why I chose her was not only because she can speak to profit first, but she also has this great journey to share. She had an actual rock bottom moment, which was more on the personal side. And she also had this great failure that she recovered from, which was buying a business right at the top of the real estate market, bottomed out, and had to close the doors, and how she recovered from that. She had to go back and take a day job to do that. And then she found Dave Ramsey. There's so many great takeaways, though, in this interview. We talk a lot about functioning depression. We talk about how to be your own bank. And most importantly, we talk about both Jennifer's and my preferred method of the question, what debt do you pay off first? We share that in this interview. So please enjoy this interview with Jennifer Dawn. I know that most businesses hit a rock bottom moment in their world somewhere. It's usually money, health, or the business, and it catapults them into a new dimension or a new track, usually for better revenue. Do you have a rock bottom moment for your business?
Yes, of course. I love how you're just starting with the dirt. Like, let's just dive right in and let's just look at all that. Let's open that closet, we don't always want to go into.
No casual start for us. Let's just
That's
dive.
Right. Exactly. I love it. It's so good because, of course, I absolutely have a rock bottom moment. I think any entrepreneur who's achieved any sort of success, has been through these kind of life-changing moments. And for me, it's very interesting in the intro where you said you were calling bullshit on, all you have to do is create a 6-figure or 7-figure business and everything will be perfect. I love that you did that and you said that because that was really in alignment with my rock bottom moment where I had created the 7-figure business and my life was anything but perfect. And so we'll make a long story short, but my rock bottom really came, I guess it's been maybe 7 or 8 years ago when I had actually grown my first multi-million-dollar company. I'd sold it, and then I bought another company that was a log home company, and it was the same year that the real estate market just completely crashed. And so I ended up opening and closing my doors within a year. And I went from being, being cash rich and having all this money and no debt to being in a lot of debt. And I was a little disillusioned, honestly, with being an entrepreneur at that point in my life. And so I took a job in corporate. I relocated across the country and I went to work for a big $54 million manufacturing firm. And they had bought a software company and they had no idea what to do with it because they were not software people. They were manufacturing people. And so they hired me in as the president of their software division. And while I was there, I'd taken the company from about 300,000 in sales to about 2.2 million in under 2 years. And so from the business side of it, had done really, really good things at quote work, made a great paycheck, which was awesome. But on the personal side, so, on paper that looks fantastic, but on the personal side, really everything fell apart. Went through a horrible divorce and which was just really, really terrible with a man who was very abusive. And I didn't know at the time, but later found out, he's an alcoholic. He has all of these issues. And so had gone through a very, very bad divorce. Corporate itself, while the job, was going good, the morals of the company I was finding the longer I stayed there they weren't really in alignment with mine. And I had discovered some problems in the software, that here I am growing this business, and discovered some problems in the software that the management, and this was a company I didn't own. So while I was management, I wasn't an owner. I didn't have the final say, and they didn't really want to fix it. That really went against my core values. It was very difficult for me to continue selling something that I knew had problems that needed to be fixed, and they weren't fixing it. On the personal side, also, I wasn't seeing my children. The nanny really was knowing the kids better than me. I lost 2 horses. I'm a horse girl. Yes, the other known facts, I have a horse. And so I had lost 2 horses within 30 days of each other, and was just really kind of this terrible divorce, being a single mom, kids, still working the corporate job, never home, just like so many things. And what happened when it was kind of over a period of about 6 months, where it was just like, bam, and then another thing, and then I'd lose a horse, and, things at work. I was just like, man, I can't fix things here. It was just bam, bam, bam. And it was kind of like 6 months of just total incomplete hell. And it got so bad that I would say I was probably, not that I was ever clinically diagnosed, but I'd have to say I was probably in definitely some sort of a functional depression, because I was functioning. I mean, I would get out of bed and go to work and do what I needed to do and earn a check and take care of my children, but that was about it. I remembered that I would watch the clock until 5 o'clock, leave the moment that I could. My weekends were so short, and there were days where I was just like, please just let me, climb back into bed. That's all I want to do, is just climb back into bed, forget about everything. In the morning, I would have to trick myself. I mean, literally, it was so bad. It got so bad where I was just like, okay, Jennifer, just sit up, and then just put your feet on the floor. Okay, go to the bathroom and pee. Okay, now take a shower. Like, literally just one thing at a time to get through my day, because it was just so dark. But the good part of that, and there is some good part to that, is that I actually started going to a women's group that I had found. One day I had gone into the office, and the wonderful lady, Karen, who sat at the front desk, and her and I had always been friendly. And at this company, I was really the only senior female executive in the entire company. And Karen was at the front desk, and they had a few women in the business that were, administrative level, but I was really the only senior female in a very male-dominated industry. And I walked into the office one day, and I remember Karen saying, she's like, Jennifer, you used to come in here every day smiling and so happy, and now you just seem sad. Like, are you okay? And nobody at this company, nobody had ever even bothered to ask me if I was okay.
Wow.
And so when a person genuinely asks you, are you okay? And that they really mean it, of course, that was all it took for the waterworks. And I literally just started crying at the front desk. And her and I, we laugh about it now, because I'm like, if I'm her, I'm thinking, oh my God, I never should have even asked the question. Because here's this, the senior executive, like, now crying at the front desk because nobody had ever really even bothered to ask if I was okay. And she did, but her and I became friends. And one of the things I learned is that she was running a women's group in the evenings, because it was her passion to motivate and empower women. This lady at the front desk, who I had been saying hello to for years and never knew this about her, and she invited me to come, and I did. And it was really kind of the start of changing everything. And her and I actually became very good friends. We're still very good friends to this day. And she later told me that it had been weeks before she could get up the courage to even ask me that question, because she was afraid to even put it out there. And I'm like, oh my God, I tell her, I'm so glad you did, because it was really the turning point for me, where I started to get some help, be around other women, started to think about a different kind of future. From her group, I actually met a life coach that I ended up hiring to help me make the transition out of corporate and kind of back out on my own again. So all these things happened. And I'll even, one more quick little tidbit. So the life coach that I ended up hiring to kind of help me fast forward a couple of years, I don't know exactly how many, she ended up introducing me to the husband that I'm married to today, who was fantastic.
Oh my gosh.
And phenomenal. Not that, hiring a life coach generally has a perk like that. It wasn't expected. But when you look back at these rock bottom moments and you go, wait a second, I'm going through this horrible, nasty divorce, and I hire a life coach to help me through all of this in a career, transition. And then you're just like, wow, if I hadn't done that, she would not have introduced me to the man I'm in love with and married to and happily married to today. And it's just amazing how your rock bottom moment, it triggers all these other things that end up being some of the best things that have ever happened to you in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny. My recovering CPA, that she was a life coach. So it's yeah, when you get to those moments, it's amazing how just a little support. Yeah. But it's amazing how your story kept going, but you were able, that one person was the catalyst to help move all of that. Boy, that Karen person, she's pretty awesome.
Oh, she is awesome. And I tell her, I was like, and even just, it was such a great lesson to me to learn that, even just a simple thing like asking somebody, are you okay? And really meaning it can literally change a person's life. Smiling, being genuine, being kind. She didn't have any idea what was going on, under the hood there. And the fact that she got the courage up to ask a question that she herself was afraid to ask, it's just very amazing to me. And even just going through daily life, if you're ever prompted to ask somebody or reach out or, listen to it and do it, because you just don't know what it can do for that person and how much it could actually help them.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a good takeaway. Yeah, that was awesome. Well, gee, after all of that, then you got to, the life coach helped you not only meet your new husband, helped you transition out of corporate into coaching. Is that was the first thing you went into? Okay. And
well, yeah, I did consulting for a little while,
okay.
and then and then I was actually asked to lead a group of women entrepreneurs, lead their masterminding and accountability circles, and then from there I tell my husband I got the courage to coach. And that's really what it was, is after really helping and mentoring so many other entrepreneurs, I kind of fell into that and I just found a love for it. And then from there, I stepped out and started doing coaching on my own.
Sweet. Love that. Oh, great. Well, during all of this, and maybe you haven't had as many now, and you may not even think of it as this, small businesses that I talk to, though, have some type of what they call a money failure. And it usually happens when they hire a bookkeeper or a CPA or even a graphic designer or website. And the items don't happen as well as they thought, didn't go as well as planned. And so then they're hesitant to do it again. Have you had anything like that in your business that you kind of think back and go, oh, that was a wonderful learning opportunity. Let's try not to do that again.
Oh yeah. When I mentioned that I had bought the company that I ended up having to close the doors, that actually I would say is my most colossal money failure ever. Because I'd bought a business and, with all good intention, had done my due diligence. But now looking back, I realized, oh, wow, if I had just asked that question, if I dug a little deeper, I might have, seen some of the things that were going on. But, you can't always know. Hindsight's, of course, 2020. And I did the best I could. But now I look back and I realize, so when I had to shut the doors, I went from being debt free to 178 grand in debt. And I'll never forget that number. And from that, what I ended up doing was Dave Ramsey, his financial university, because of course I was looking for a way of like, how in the world do I get out from under this? And I did his financial university. It was so empowering, so much amazing information. I did get out of all that debt. It took me about 2 years to get completely out of it. So big, huge, giant lesson learned there. But now looking back, I realize I'm so grateful for that experience because I've been through it. So now when, a company comes to me and they're 100 grand, 200 grand, 500, I have a company who's $1 million in debt right now. I've been there. I understand it. I know how hard it is. I dug myself out. So I have that experience that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't gone through it myself. So I feel like as a coach, I'm really, really able now to help them in a way that I wouldn't have been able to help if I hadn't actually lived through the hell of, financial disaster myself and recovered and lived to tell the tale. And of course, then lived to help other people. So, of course it sucked. If you're going through it right now, it just sucks. Keep going. But looking back now as a business coach, it's really given me a whole different layer. You can't go to a class and learn how to get out of something like that. It's just, you're either going to survive it or you're not. And I did. I survived it, thank goodness. And now I'm able to turn it back around and use it to help others get out of those kinds of things as well.
Yeah. I've always told people when they go to, hire a CPA or even a bookkeeper to get somebody who has that industry knowledge. It's going to be a quicker thing. They're going to bring more to it. But little did I know as I'm stepping into this new thing that my journey of debt and that shame is going to actually help the next people I work with. I would not have thought that as I was going through that journey, and it was such a personal thing to me. But it's true on all accounts, whether you're looking for somebody still helping you with your service industry and knowing your industry for tax purposes, but also hiring coaches that have been there and done that to kind of like, be in that empathetic space with you.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome. But it's interesting that leads you to what you do now. That's yeah, I would never have thought that, but for myself anyway. Oh, cool. So you do coach Profit First, and so probably tracking your profit is something you've done for a while. So let's talk about, how do you plan for profit rather than how you track it?
Yeah.
How do you plan for it?
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great question. And so, if you've read Profit First, you certainly understand the concepts. If you don't, in a nutshell, the idea is, I just mentioned Dave Ramsey. If you know Dave Ramsey, he does his envelope system, and Profit First always kind of, because I'd done Dave Ramsey first before I came across Profit First, it always felt like kind of an electronic envelope system for my business. And for whatever reason, that's how it kind of sits in my brain, is that's really how it works. And so when the money comes in, you're basically just, setting aside a piece of it in the profit account. And I had never done that. And in my previous businesses, because I had not come across Profit First. And it's such a simple idea, but yet so brilliant, because you are in fact able to, plan for your profit. And for me, I do my allocations once a month. It's just easier for me to just do it once a month and get it all done. And for my business owners, I kind of coach them in, figuring out the frequency that's best for them. But for me, that works. I just do it once a month. And it's so great because I know that money's going in there. I know my business is going to be profitable. And when I first started doing it, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, look, I have this money. Like, I didn't know, like, what am I going to do with it? Now I have my profit distribution for probably the next 4 quarters already. Like, okay, I know what I'm doing with that one. I know what I'm doing with this. My family and I, for Thanksgiving, we're headed out on a cruise, and I was able to fund that with my profit account. And it just feels so amazing to know that, every month that I was getting paid, I was diligent in putting that money, setting it aside, and just diligent in doing that. And because of it, now, I'm able to take it and do something amazing with it. I have used my profit distribution. I used it to write my book. I've used it to take trips with my family. I've just used it for so many amazing things, and it's such a joy. And it really makes your business more of a joy. It's not just about the money. It really goes beyond that. It's about the joy of saying, hey, this is a business I created. I did really well in. Obviously, I had to be doing well or my clients would fire me and not pay me anymore. So I must be doing something right here. And I've kept my business going, and I'm profitable. And now I get to just, go and do these things, have these amazing experiences as a result of it. And to me, the experiences, mean so much more than the money. Just being able to say, all right, we're going away for a week with the kids, and we're going to have this great thing. And it was because I planned for profit, just a simple thing, but I planned for it. And now we're going to get to have a great experience.
Yeah, I love that. Somebody else had talked about how Profit First, one of the other interviews talked about how Profit First makes it easier to communicate what the plan is with her partner. But the true part is that joy of giving. Before Profit First, I had never really seen a business owner, entrepreneur take a distribution from their business and, be joyful that that's what it was. I've seen them use
business as a bank, pulling money out as soon as they could. But when they actually pause and save for it for 3 months and then must use it for that, it's kind of like, no, your business is giving back to you. That really is the joy. And it's like, oh yeah, look, every business owner I've helped implement that's probably their favorite thing, the quarterly distributions.
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta be careful, because when I first started doing them, my husband, he's like, what the heck? Where's this money coming from? We're going on vacation, and I'm like, here, honey, here's an extra $500, to contribute to the vacation. And here's this. He's like, where's this coming from? I'm like, it's my profit account. He's like, holy cow. So, about the second or third quarter in, we were off doing something, and he was like, hey, like, well, how much do you have in your profit account? I'm like, don't even think about spending the profit account, because he got he was loving it. He was just like, hey, what else have you got in that profit account? I'm like, nope.
Oh, and I love the part about, you do yours once a month. I do mine weekly. It's about really paying attention to what your internal money needs are. And I also have a client that separated her profit from her growth, so that she puts part of it. That's the profit account is strictly just for her, and because they wanted to see that separately. So there's a lot of ways that you can customize it for you based on your own money habits and the story, especially if you have a partner that's involved in the business that needs to see things. So as people read Profit First, keep that in mind, that it's a guide. The book is a guide to get you started. So you can customize it. I have a lot of people that come to me and say, it has to be done this way. And no, it doesn't have to be done exactly like this. But
exactly.
Anyway, cool.
I usually tell people, look, don't lose the core fundamental. The fundamental is the allocation, but how frequently you do it, you can customize that based on your business, so that, because if you try and do it based on somebody else's schedule, you won't stick with it long term. You've got to find the system that really, really works for you. I bill out once a month. I allocate once a month. That works for me. But I'm not losing sight of the core fundamental, which is to do the allocation and then, of course, a quarterly distribution. So great. Exactly right, Connie. It's a guideline, but just don't lose touch of the fundamental.
Yeah. And I love this, that, when we purposely or intentionally move money to the profit account, we automatically are increasing the profit in our business, which is part of the free gift that I offered everyone that signed up for this. But let's take it back one step further. When I first started it, I was like using 98% of my money coming in was just to run the business. So to actually set money aside for profit was like, there's nothing there. And so I just started somewhere. I started with 0.5%. It was crazy low. But what I had to eventually do is also go back and look at my pricing and make sure that I had profit built into that. And so a lot of people, that might be their next step to do that. So when you plan for profit as well, do you add in a profit calculation into your stuff, or can you? This probably is not a short question, a short answer. How you do your pricing, but I guess there was several years there, like I priced based on what everybody else did, or what my company with CPA was charging for me. That was my initial pricing. And it was, 10 years, 13 years into my business before I was like, oh, you have to add a profit margin. What is that? So can you tell people, do you have anything to add on how they could calculate a profit margin, or what things to look at? Or is it, instead of like, sometimes, I know this isn't a question, so you're not prepared for this, but I'm just wondering, because that's part of the profit planning. Is there a small guideline if nobody's ever looked at that to start at?
Sure, absolutely. And it's interesting because in my coaching practice, because I work from home, I have very low overhead. And so in that business, it was actually easier to charge less because I'm like, wait, my overhead is so low, but like with every business owner, I think we all kind of go through that phase of, well, we're just going to start here with our pricing. And as we go along, we start to realize, oh, wow, I'm not really pricing myself. I'm not making enough. And then you start looking at how much time, even though my overhead was low, my time involved was just getting crazy. And you're looking at your bank account at the end of the day going, hey, this isn't worth it. And that kind of tends to be that driving factor to go, I need to increase my prices. And you do. And for some people, there's a lot of different methodologies out there. If you're service-based, I'm talking service-based right now, and you do have low overhead, people will say, double your price. And sometimes that works, but there's a point where you can't keep just doubling your price, and you really do have to look at your overhead. You have to look at how much money do you really want to make? And this was a question I had to ask myself. For the time I'm involving, for the experience that I'm bringing, what do I really want to see at the end of the day for a salary so that I can go to bed at night and feel good, pay my bills, put my kids through college, do what I need to do? What does that number need to be? And so when I figured out that number, I really and truly then asked myself, how many hours a week do you want to work? And I just did the math. And, the number that you come up with, you're like, oh my God, how am I supposed to charge, whatever the number is, $100 an hour, $300 or $500 an hour? Like, how can I really do that? And it's not that it happened overnight where, you go from charging $100 an hour to $300 an hour or whatever your numbers are. I'm just throwing numbers out there. That doesn't always happen overnight, but at least it'll give you where you're headed for. It'll give you a goal. So you can then stair step it. You can do it in a way that's authentic to you. But truly for my coaching practice, that's what I did. I'm like, okay, at the end of the day, how will I feel? I feel like my value is really, I'm being paid my value for the hours I want to work. How much money is that? And I just did the math and figured out the hours. And then I went from there, and I do charge that rate now, and I'm really happy to get it. For the planner company, it's a little different because there's a material cost there. And in the beginning, I was selling them, too cheaply. And when I sat down and I looked at, all right, so what does, a Facebook ad run me to sell this? How much is my printing cost? I really had to look at those hard costs, and then from there, calculate a profit margin. And I knew that I wanted to make somewhere between, on average, 30% profit margin is kind of where I wanted to come in at. And so again, I just did the math, but it's tough when you're figuring those hard expenses. Sometimes you want to just sort of, leave a few out and go, oh, I wish it didn't cost me that much. So, you really have to be honest with yourself and include every single hard expense in there, marketing, printing costs, if you have to pay commissions, whatever it is that you do, if you're doing more of a product-based business, figure out those hard costs and what you want your profit margin to be. And that's going to give you your price. And then from there, it's a marketing game to position it to attract the right client who's willing to pay the price, for the value they're going to get.
Yeah. And this happens for plumbers, electricians, to restaurants, to service-based people. It's most of the time when we first start, it's just what are our expenses and what we want to pay, but they rarely add back in the tax they might owe for that. And the little profit that they're going to need, that's that cash flow cushion that helps on those slow months and for education and growth and everything. And so if people can, that's also why I recommend, if people have never looked at their pricing, to use a business coach. That's one of the things that they're super good at, is helping you dial in your revenue streams and looking at your costs. But I'm wondering, how do you look at your costs? Do you use a software, or do you have a team member that helps bring that to you, or do you use a spreadsheet?
Yeah, I'm old school. I use a spreadsheet. I just, I know there's a lot of fancy, lovely softwares out there that will do it. But no, I just use a simple Excel spreadsheet. I like to keep things simple. I've used Excel forever, and I just keep it all in there. It calculates all my percentages. I know right where I'm going to be. That's all I use is just an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah. And that's another key thing for our listeners, is that a lot of people have come to me like, oh, I had to go get QuickBooks, or I had to go get this software. And when you make certain dollar amounts, or you have a team involved, it does sometimes make sense to go that. But most of the times a spreadsheet works just fine. There are some things to consider that your tax people might want for audit purposes and those types of things, but don't make it more difficult. Make
Yeah.
it as simplified as you can for your tracking. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. There's enough difficult things in life. You might as well, this is something you can keep simple and keep it simple. And even I have clients who are running multi-million-dollar businesses, and we do their monthly budget, we do it on a spreadsheet.
Nice.
So yeah.
Nice. It kind of leads into planning, a planning conversation.
Yes.
Well, because the next question was about investments, but I bet you plan for investments. So besides a budget, of course, I don't call it a budget when people work with me, but don't worry. I call it it's a map, but it's the same thing. You need to kind of know where you're at minimum wise today and where you're going to, where your growth is. So what's some planning strategies that you do for your own business, like when you're making investments or for the year?
Yeah, so absolutely. I keep it really simple. So I do have my Excel spreadsheet. I have a percentage of my revenues that goes back into personal investments, and then also reinvesting in my business. In my coaching side, that's exactly what I'm doing right now. Is I'm having a marketing funnel built for my coaching, and it's a huge investment. But because I knew I was going to get to that point where I was going to be ready to scale, I spent the entire last year planning for it, setting money aside for it, so that I would be able to fund that investment without having to go into debt, or without having to sell my soul to the devil to pay for the marketing funnel. So now that I'm kind of in it, it's very nice that I took the last year to kind of pre-plan ahead for it. As far as personal investments, I just set a percentage. I use, the profit first. I use that for everything. And I just know that I have a percentage that's set aside. It goes into investments. I don't touch it. And I know that money is allocated, so I can't use it for anything else. Like if, let's say, for investing in the business, I had to set money aside separately for that purpose, which was kind of over and above my normal operating expenses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of our other speakers, David Nagel, was saying, their personal wealth, anything that appreciates, that's what he invests in. So that's interesting. Nobody has come back to say of the percentage of the revenue, a portion goes straight to personal wealth and then the business growth. And I love the fact about funding your growth first rather than during it. I can tell everybody listening, funding it while you're doing your growth doesn't really work. It doesn't work. I mean, that's where we get into the debt problems. So this is amazing. Of course, when people are first starting up, we are going to be funding as we're growing. But so with your debt, when you work with clients now that need to use debt for that purpose, like they're a startup, then it's about planning to how to pay that back, right? And so that probably starts with what their revenue model is going to look like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So with those clients that are paying back the debt, we do twofold. So we pay back the debt, and at the same time, we're actually building their own fund. I call it Be Your Own Bank. It's like BYOB, not beer, but Be Your Own Bank. And so with my debt clients, as soon as we're kind of in parallel, we start to build an account so they can start to fund themselves. We pay off that debt, and then the money that we've been funneling into debt, we funnel it back into the Be Their Own Bank account. So they actually end up, when we're done, and it doesn't happen overnight, but when we're done, they basically have a bank account with however much money, depending on the size of the company. It could be 20,000, 50,000, it could be 500,000. That we kind of end up with an account that replaces credit cards, bank loans, lines of credit, and it's their own money. And the beautiful part of that is that they spend that money very, very differently. When the bank hands you $100,000, you can cook right through that without even thinking about it. But when it's $100,000 of your money that you worked hard for, you think twice about how you're going to spend that money. So that's really what I do with my clients, is transition them away from traditional debt and into funding their own investments and being their own bank.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that. That is a great takeaway. And then paying the debt down, do you use that snowball effect from the Dave Ramsey?
I do. I love the snowball. There's also another method, which is pay off the balance. And I don't know who came up with it, but it's paying off the balance that has the highest negative emotional impact.
Ooh.
So I was like, oh my God, I love that one. So sometimes if a client has a balance that just drives them crazy, we focus on that first and we get that the biggest negative emotional impact balance done first. And then we'll often then switch to Dave Ramsey and do the next lowest balance. So I do throw that in there as well, because sometimes it's just that one that just really rips you and you just want that one gone, and we'll focus on that one first.
Oh, I love that. That makes a lot of sense, because if you don't, when I work with people, they keep going back to it. They keep going, they're like, well, yeah, sure, we'll pay that one off, but they're not excited about it. But how exciting to pay off something that has such a negative impact on their business. Oh, I'm so excited over here.
Yes. And then once that one's gone, then they can really focus on, okay, now let's knock out the other stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Well, let's end with your inspiration. The business was originally created to help fund your family as being a single parent, put food on the table type of thing. But it's grown to something now you actually love doing, and you've already shared your profit distributions contribute to your family to go do travel and stuff. What is there any other things that your business helps contribute to your life?
Yeah, it does in so many ways. And it's interesting because the coaching side is really where the bulk of my finances come from, that revenue there. And it allows me to work from home. So I'm around for my kids.
Mm-hmm.
My older kids, my oldest just started college. My middle is in high school. Even though they're older and self-sufficient, it's almost like they need mom actually more right now in these years. And so because I'm home, I'm able to be available for my family. I can still run, a very successful business and use my brain during the day, which is awesome. But then it really allows me to still be like the best mom I can be. That's from the coaching. And then from the planner company, it's a smaller company. It's kind of I wouldn't say my side business, but it's kind of my side business. It doesn't take as much time as my coaching does, but oh my gosh, what a joy that little company is. It's just it's like a little love bug, and it's the gift that keeps on giving. I get women on Facebook, emailing me, messaging me, just saying how much the planner has changed their life. You are saying, wow, I've been able to use this planner so that I can be more intentional with my time. That just gives me so much joy to have somebody, email me, message me, tell me how something I created has changed their life. It's hard to explain. Even every day I see orders coming in from just strangers, people I just don't know, and they're buying my planner and they're having these great experiences, and the joy that comes from that is just, it's mind-boggling. It's hard to explain. It is, but it's so satisfying and so fulfilling. Even some days I'm still like surprised. It's like, really, you like it? I'm like, oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah, no, that's when you have found and created a business that supports your full life, when you can say things like that. Definitely not something I could have said about the evolution of the bookkeeping business. It didn't fill me as much. It did originally, that interaction with clients, that knowing that impact, but your business can sometimes get off track. So that's a good check-in for people. Can you say those nice things about your business now? Are they contributing to your life right now? Then your business is doing awesome if they are. If they're not, then it probably just means to reevaluate where it's going. It's time to look at the values that the business is bringing and see what side steps you could do to get the business back on track so it does things like that. So awesome, Jennifer Dawn.
Exactly. For my planner business, it did not make money the first year. It did not make money the second year. It's making money now. So depending on like where you're at in business, if you have a business that you really, really love, you absolutely stick with it. I'm so blessed because the coaching was able to kind of fund the planner to get it off the ground. And so even if you're in that startup phase and you're spending money and it's not making money, just, kind of stick with it, keep going. I did have to change my pricing. I had to change some strategies. I had to course correct to get it to a place where it was going to, in fact, be able to pay for itself and make money. So you can too. And I'm so happy to be part of this summit because tools like Profit First will absolutely help you to get there.
Yes. Great interview today, Jennifer. Dawn. There were so many takeaways I had. One, I love this Be Your Own Bank, this BYOB. That's so awesome. And the balance of paying off the negative impact credit card or the debt first, that was great. But the one I also wanted to mention was that part that you mentioned in your story about being a functioning depression. And just being brave. If Karen had just, was brave enough to ask, are you okay? And actually mean it. That's the key thing for anybody, because I see that a lot in business owners, that we do get so stuck in the doing that we could be actually having depression and just functioning and going through it and going through the motions and not realizing it. And when you feel like you're getting in that bubble and that's all you do is your business and it doesn't feel like you're getting out anywhere, to kind of maybe stop and think about that. And maybe you'll have a Karen in your life that will stop and ask, or maybe you will be the Karen in someone else's life and ask, are you okay? And make sure that happens. Because that can happen really quick. So wow, great things. I have a whole sheet over here.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I love it. Yeah. If you're going through a rock bottom moment, just try and remember that, a few years in the future, you'll be telling your story too, and maybe even having a laugh over, wow, that was really awful. Yeah. But, get help. Reach out. That was the one thing I suffered in silence. I was, here I am on paper, this big exec and blah, blah, blah. And it's all a bunch of crap. I really needed some help. Luckily it found me. And so if you're going through something like that, don't suffer in silence, reach out, get some help, find some good people to surround yourself with who aren't going to judge you and can kind of help you, step through the fire and keep going until you get to the other side.